All right, so this video is about pay to play, which, if you're not familiar with the term, basically means that there's a monetary barrier to, let's say, your penetration of society or penetration of the cultural conversation or the mainstream, whatever it may be. Um, there was this whole payola scandal with radio where people were paying to be on the radio, paying DJs to play their songs, which has always happened and will always happen. It's just that, much like with uh, certain things to do with stocks and stuff, insider trading, um, that sort of thing, like you're kind of always doing it and it kind of can't function without you doing it. So it's just about not doing it in too obvious of ways or in too deliberate and blatant of ways. Because basically you can't actually make money. I mean, I'm sure stock bros are going to come at me and be like, yes, you can. But in essence, the point of a stock market is the anticipation of things, and anything built upon the anticipation of things is to some extent insider trading because it's not random, right? It's not a random number generator, so it's not chance. It's not a chance game, but there are elements of chance. I'm getting way off topic here. What I'm saying is, of course, radio stations are paid in favors and you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, or outright money to play certain songs. And a lot of times they don't even have to be told to play certain songs. It's just implied. The point is that, so the public doesn't get too wise to these sorts of things. There will be basically every now and then court cases in that regard of like, hey, you can't do that. And then the radio station's like, oh, and then pays some small fine. And, it's all for show. It's like that in business. It's like that in everything. But pay to play is basically the reason why I'm talking about is that pay to play is what we poor as filmmakers, not poor as in quality, but poor as in lack of money, what we tend to butt up against when it comes to um, being successful in our field. Because we can make these movies for nothing, but we can't get them in front of enough eyes for nothing. We're basically by our very existence, we're exposing the pay to play that happens within film. Because the job of the critic isn't to seek things out, and the job of um, me is not to like I'm not I don't exist to line the wallets and the pockets of people in these positions. My job is to make the movies. Um, and it's important to remember that for anybody who might forget it. I just make the stuff and I keep making this stuff. But those who can pay either directly or through some intermediary, like an agent. I don't know why I put intermediary in quotes because the subsequent needs the quotes. Agent or manager acting as an intermediary or distribution company that takes on the responsibility, in quotes, of paying. And, by paying, I also, of course, mean just collusion and connections. Connections are its own payment, essentially. Because connections aren't like it's a newbie might view connections as, oh, this person, that's convenient, cool. But what connections really are is like it's a series of favors going back and forth. Like you're playing this game. Really, like what it comes down to is like, when I was in high school, I got really into Ayn Rand and capitalism and to an extent libertarianism. Just because I was so fascinated by how much I'd been lied to about what capitalism is or isn't. That's really the first step most people take when they go down that, um, quote unquote right wing rabbit hole, is that they find out that they were lied to about certain things, and then they're like, "Oh, what else have I been lied to about?" Etc. Um, I can't speak to what the left rabbit hole is, but judging from how people act, it's not about discovering truths. It's if anything, it's a series of lies, but I'm not trying to pick on them. I'm just saying that there's a different motivation. Like my motivation was like, oh, what are these uncomfortable truths and how can I keep unraveling them? Don't worry, I'm going to defend the left in a split second. I'm just getting there. So when I discovered capitalism, I was like, holy shit, there's nothing like how it was presented to me. I totally get what it is. Uh, it's a good thing. Free market's a good thing. Blah blah blah. Now, what they don't then tell you is asterisk asterisk asterisk. Well, Ayn Rand, to her credit, she does say this: capitalism is in America is horseshit. It's not real. It's never really been properly tried. Laissez-faire capitalism has never been actually implemented. It's always been crony capitalism, and it's always been a facsimile, a fugazi of actual capitalism. That's why part of the reason why she's awesome. But a lot of people on the right, they have this blind adherence to capitalism as though it's actually going on. I will say that not so much anymore. I feel like the right is a bit more savvy and a bit more, for lack of a better term, liberal or Gen X about it. They're realizing things that the liberals knew like 20 years ago, particularly in regards to food. And that a lot of these companies do not have your best interests at heart. Somebody new to getting into stuff on the right and capitalism will think like, well, if a company didn't have your best interests at heart, that would hurt their bottom line and they would go out of business. And so all companies have your best interest. Like you get so crazy with it if you assume that capitalism is actually taking place. That's why you always have to stop yourself and say, yes, capitalism good, though it's not actually happening. And so, um, and I thought I could end it on that point, but I guess I did need to continue. That's a sentence. And what's happening in place of it is the worst thing ever, which is just total manipulation of everything. Nothing's real. Everybody's just behaving like dicks. And it's the same way with meritocracy, right? The idea that like cream rises to the top. Yes, there are popular things that are very good, undeniably so. But a lot of times that's cover for the fact that like the cream isn't rising to the top. The one or two examples that you can cite and you can imagine of cream rising to the top is covering for all the times when it's not, and deliberately so. To bring this all back to pay to play. So if I make a movie like Ramekin or No Shark, which starts to get buzz and starts to get some kind of grassroots, like we like this is cool thing about it. To this day, those are, well, that and Blurry Finger, those three are probably my most well known, got out there movies. I hit a ceiling with every single one of them because it only goes so far. That's one of the things you realize is that at a certain point you need random help from the algorithm, or you need connections, or you need money to inject into it. Otherwise, you hit a ceiling. Like you just can't get past it. Like as great as word of mouth is and grassroots like groundswell support is, it's not this endlessly powerful tool. It has a certain ceiling to it. You can only get so popular before you start having to put money into the system and develop connections and network. Which is, I say that like it's easy. It's not. It's very difficult to pump money into these things, and it's very difficult to network in any actual way. I'm not talking about like go to a film festival and shake some hands and introduce yourself. I'm not talking about like a boomer version of like networking, of like go into the place of business with your resume and a firm handshake and you'll be in charge of the plant by next winter or something. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like these things are impossible. Like it's a what's the quote? It's a big club and you're not in it or something. It's a small club and you're not in it. Whatever it may be, it's a club. You're not in it. And they can kind of smell it on you that you're not one of them and you're never going to be until you are, and then they want to be your friend. Um, it's the kind of thing of like if somebody needs money, nobody wants to give it to them, and if somebody doesn't need money, everybody wants to give it to them because the law of reciprocity is more guiding people's kindness and generosity than anything else. They understand that like a rich person has a better chance of either paying you back or helping you out than a poor person. So people want to help out rich people rather than they want to help out poor people, um, subconsciously or whatever. Anyway, so pay to play is really what we mostly see taking place in film. Um, these indie success stories are stories; they're fictions largely. And I'm not saying that they didn't happen. I'm saying that like they're being told to you, um, and the actual reality of these things is more complicated and more ugly than you ever get to hear. I'm not talking about like Harvey Weinstein, like jerking off into a plant ugliness. I'm talking about like it's just not a sexy story. It's not inspiring. Yet once these things hit journalists and press and this, that, and the other, they get a little wrapped up a little nicer. And the seams are hidden a bit more. Um, I don't think I've ever seen, and I don't think you've ever seen an actual genuine, organic, truly rocket to the stars success. And I'm not counting anything with algorithmic accidents, that because that's lottery. I can't count lottery. That'd be like if I was like, yeah, if I came to you and I was like, yeah, somebody with no money can become $100 million rich person, and I was citing as examples the lottery, you'd be like, fuck you. So that's why I'm not citing like algorithmic like things. Like what happened to Joel Haver, the algorithm embraced and then rocketed what was happening with his videos to the stars. Yes, if you get enough eyes on your stuff and there's enough momentum, you can rise and you can develop. It's just that what prevents you from getting eyes on your stuff is not having the money, not having the luck, not having the connections. That's just what it is. To the extent that, like, if people aren't seeing it happen for you, um, they don't think the system is wrong. They think there's something wrong with you. If I've made like close to 30 movies, and if people are like, well, I've never heard of them, immediately I'm bad at filmmaking. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they're so, the idea of indie success has been so told to them over and over and over, this fake version of it that's really just pay to play in some capacity, that if they don't see that happening with you, they think there's something wrong with you. I would relate it to on social media. You can be wealthy. I actually know millionaires. Uh, that's not a flex. I'm just saying I know and have known millionaires. And you would not know it from their social media necessarily, because they're not flaunting it. And so they don't actually read as millionaires to the public, um, because we've taken success and we've turned it into how you must signal it, uh, in order for people to even register it as success. So, like, I have so many wins in my career that are great and wonderful, and I'm really proud of them, and I'm happy that I've had them. But they're not like the kind of wins that like, um, people can parse, like a normal person can parse as like, wow, you really did it, you know? Um, so it's like unless you're flaunting your wealth on social media, people don't register you as wealthy. That's what I mean. Is like you have to make it and then fake it in order for people to even know that you made it. It's very strange. Um, so yeah, it's like to a certain extent, if you didn't see it in the media, it didn't happen, right? That's a problem in politics. That's a problem in entertainment. It's a problem in everything. I can say to the cows come home like, "Hey, I made a great movie for $0, or I made a great movie in 10 hours or 3 hours or whatever." Until the New York Times is saying this guy made a movie in 3 hours and it's great, it's awesome. That win doesn't register for most people. It has to be from a reputable source. I, who did it and can prove that I did it, am not a reputable source as far as people getting excited and people taking notice. They're getting high more off of the independent, in quotes, validation of it, which is crazy. Because if you want to get that story written, again, money, connections, bizarre luck that's really just rigged to a certain extent. Um, yeah. So that's what I mean about pay to play is like, yeah, a lot of the times, we're just not going to penetrate, and it's because we just don't have money. And if I had all the money in the world, I would just, if any movie that I liked that was made by one of us, a truly independent filmmaker, a folk filmmaker, DIY, no budget, whatever, I would essentially just market it for free. I would just advertise it for free. I would put up billboards. I would do whatever. I would be that pay to play person. But there isn't that pay to play person because for whatever reason, there's just not a independently wealthy person who's thinking in that way and cares about us. Um, but yeah, anyway, it's just thoughts. I just think it's always going to be a problem. And so we should talk about it. And I don't have solutions. It's just, I'm just pointing out what takes place. And, it's one of those things where like, if you believe that your lack of success in a traditional sense is due to, your film not being good enough or whatever, it's just not the case. It has nothing to do with that. We're talking about completely different mechanisms from worth. Worth is something that has nothing to do with the press and the media and success in a traditional way. It's just not. It has nothing to do with it. It's different from the definition of capitalism that we are lied to about, and then when we finally learn it, we're like, "Fuck yeah, I'm right wing," and then, um, then you have to go down path further and realize that capitalism isn't actually what's being employed in business. Capitalism is like a skin suit that's being worn. Independent film, it's a hollowed out skin suit. It's the wins are manufactured, and if the win isn't televised, it didn't happen. This is what I'm talking about. It's all gamed and it's all broken. But if you've ever been in my shoes, you know all this already. You just maybe haven't put it to words. But maybe there's people out here that need to hear it. Anyway, cool. See ya.